Becoming one with the Force and joining it is the ultimate goal of any Jedi. Upon death, every being gives back to the Force the very life that they had while they were living, and their identity as well, as their life energy is absorbed back into the vast pool which fuels the universe. Force users who adhere to the light side or did generally good things in their life were brought into the netherworld of the Force, a place of eternal peace and bliss. Their identities would also be absorbed and melded into the netherworld, no longer themselves, but now completely one with the Force. In rare instances though, those that have learned can manifest themselves as what is known as a Force ghost, Jedi who have learned the secret to retaining their identity after death so as to manifest to the next generation and the physical world. This is the fundamental truth of what we may call heaven in Star Wars. But just like in our world, cosmic justice abounds, and those who practice evil cannot take part in this bliss. For them, only hell awaits. But what is hell in the Force? Is it a place of fire, screaming, and eternal torture? Or is it something else? Today, my friends, we are going to be opening an old holocron and talking about this section of the netherworld of the Force, a section simply known as Chaos, the damning fate which awaits all Sith and Darksiders. But first, we've experienced a terrible vision in the Force. Many who use our archives have not yet subscribed to our channel yet, so if you haven't, reach out and crush that subscribe button. It is your destiny. It is a known fact that all Sith fear death. One of the most sought after secrets of the dark side is immortality, in any way possible in order to cheat death. Their twisting of life is an affront to the Force, and the Sith will do anything they can, sacrificing anyone necessary in order to ensure that their power remains absolute. As Sidious had stated before, the greatest and the only thing that a Sith Lord truly fears is to lose that power. They spend every waking moment trying to gain more of it. They both create and endure horrific amounts of pain and suffering in order to squeeze every ounce of the dark side that they can. So the worst place possible to put one of these beings is where none of that even matters. This is the hell that awaits the Sith, a place where all their power and accomplishments amount to nothing. Hell is an understood concept in Star Wars and in the galaxy, though it is called very different things in various different cultures. It is commonly referred to as hell because of Corellian mythology, which refers to it as such. Due to this, and vast amounts of people from that world spreading this ideology, the word hell in Star Wars isn't taken very seriously, and usually is just used as an expletive. But what Sith fear isn't the ideologically driven notion of hell, at least that humans erroneously toss around while swearing. What the Sith fear is chaos, or as Sith have called it themselves, the Great Void. The word chaos can be attributed to the mythology of Naboo, which depicted chaos as a giant large pit closed off by 6 gates. This concept is so popular in Naboo culture that it became the basis behind the 6 laser gates which guard the Naboo's virtually fathomless power generator. This actually makes the duel in Theed between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul so much more poetic, as they cross through the 6 gates into chaos. And once Kenobi cuts Maul in half, the Sith is sent tumbling down the shaft into the metaphorical void. The final resting place for those that practice the dark side and worship evil is a place of complete darkness. And we do mean literal darkness. It is impossible to see anything in chaos. Unlike what images the word may conjure in your mind, chaos was not a place of external torment or disarray, but rather, chaos was described as extremely quiet. Not a peaceful quiet, but a lonely one. An eternal quiet. The silence was filled with only whatever screaming that specific Sith Lord may do once they realized that this is the place of their new eternity. The Force still exists in chaos, since this place was just a section of the netherworld, but all of the Sith's power can do nothing for them here. They are alone, lost in the void forever. Anything they were or may have become is now gone. Anything that they have achieved is now lost in darkness along with them. They now exist in a state of absolute nothingness. No one to dominate, no one to even speak to. The torture exists in their mind, and there is no escape from that. No rest, no sleep. They must endure every excruciatingly lonely moment of eternal torment in darkness. Words truly fail to describe the horrible reality of an existence in chaos. If this was the eventual fate of all Sith though, you would think that this would be talked about more, especially among Sith. You'd think that there would be more Sith like the Ancient One Darth Ndedu, who was completely paranoid about dying. But in reality, the idea of chaos had mixed views among the Sith Order, since no one had been there and been back to tell the tale. The Sith didn't really accept one general idea of what chaos was, or whether it even existed. Some Sith were superstitious about it, but others, like Darth Sidious, had a different idea entirely. According to Palpatine, who grew up on the mythology of Naboo and the legends of the Sith, Palpatine's idea of chaos was not so much a punishment for all Sith, but for the Sith that failed in their pursuits of power or revenge. This is a very unique take on damnation, one that suggests that if you tread the dark path and just fail to achieve your goals, that you would be punished for using the dark side's powers, but being too weak to execute your plan. But another Sith that had an interesting take on chaos and hell would be Darth Plagueis. Darth Plagueis is the closest equivalent to a Sith atheist that we have, as he didn't believe in any afterlife at all. He didn't even believe one existed. Plagueis said that the afterlife was created as a concoction upon people's death in order to ease their expiration in their mind. However, Darth Bane knew that chaos and the void did indeed exist. Darth Bane knew is that chaos is where Sith went when they failed a ritual known as essence transfer, which Bane eventually would. Ironically, the one thing that most Sith agree about is that they don't believe that becoming one with the Force is any better than chaos, since peace was a lie. Only the weak found solace in an eternity of bliss, in losing one's own identity. This is the affront of what it meant to be a Sith. Joining with the Force, to them, would be worse. It would admit that the Force was stronger than their own will. But one of the major reasons Sith cannot agree is that chaos is completely different for each and every Sith Lord. This is the curveball that catches most off guard, as the eternity of darkness that we described earlier is only the default setting of chaos. What and where that darkness may be entirely depends on the individual Dark Lord. For example, upon his death, Darth Tenebris transferred his spirit into a virus, one that entered Darth Plagueis' body. But when he saw that Plagueis would not meet the Chosen One before his untimely death, Darth Tenebris panicked and departed the body of Plagueis, attempting to return to his own dead body and attempt to find a new host. Ultimately, when he found his body though, it was decaying and was nearly skeletal. Tenebris' chaos was being forced to relive that moment, the moment of his death, over and over again. All his powers of foresight had turned on himself, basically sticking his spirit into a perpetual time loop of pain. He was forced to return to his body after panicking, just to find it progressively more decayed. The minute that Darth Tenebris realized that he was in a loop of time, the terror set in. The loop would start over and over again, forcing Darth Tenebris to relive his dark discovery for all eternity. We bring this up because all Sith may not go to the location of chaos, but chaos may manifest itself wherever their spirit is trapped. Some Sith become spirits willingly, and thus attach themselves to objects, or places, or even temples. People can interact with these spirits, and usually the Sith live their afterlife such as this, trying to enact their will by manipulating the living around them. But some Sith become spirits unwillingly, and are trapped in a strange limbo state between the world of the living and the world of chaos. Such is the case for Exar Kun. Exar attempted a massive forced ritual with his Massassi followers at his temple in order to release his spirit to cause terror on the cosmos. When he performed this ritual, even he himself admitted that he didn't fully understand what he was doing. But Exar Kun's decision was made out of panic because the entire Jedi Order was on his doorstep. When he attempted to release his spirit, all of the Jedi combined their powers in the light side to shut down the ritual. Ultimately, the ritual released his spirit, but it was disturbed, resulting in his ghost leaving his body, but being forever bound to this temple. Within the temple, Exar Kun was shrouded in complete darkness, calling out for anyone to hear him, to let someone know that he was still alive, at least in some fashion. A similar fate would be Darth Malgus, who was trapped within his own mask as his body disintegrated into the Force, only freed when someone put the Mask of Nihilus on. It's also possible that Ajunta Pal was in chaos within his own temple, as when Darth Revan met his spirit, the first Sith Lord could barely remember who he was, anything about his old life. He had just wandered for thousands of years, wallowing in regret and remorse. Essentially, Ajunta Pal was grieving, a perfect example of chaos forming in the Sith's very mindscape. Truly, these fates are worse than death. It's also our opinion that in the case of the Sith spirit being allegedly destroyed, they are actually being banished to chaos forever. This is the case when Exar Kun destroyed the spirit of Frida Nad with Naga Sidhou's amulet, taking place in Tales of the Jedi: The Sith Lords number 4. It's also likely what happened when Darth Warlock destroyed Darth Ndedu with his own paranoia. Legacy 2006 number 27. As an aside, if you guys would like full holocrons about either of these Sith Lords and their stories, please request them down below and we will construct one for you. But since the Force still existed within the Chaos realm, it was not impossible for a dead Sith Lord to still influence the world of the living, although it was extremely rare and also apparently exceptionally difficult. Exar Kun managed to do this after thousands of years. When he learned that his darkness was within his own temple, he managed to somehow influence the students of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy. In doing so, Exar attempted to twist or possess them so that he could be returned to life. In canon, there is a cult known as the Final Occultation, who may have also been capable of this, as seen in Darth Maul Black, White, and Red number 1. In that book, according to Darth Sidious, they were aided by chaotic forces from the nether realm of the Force, with this being in canon, although this is extremely vague and doesn't tell us if there were Sith or just paranormal beings out there. But the three leaders of what is known as the Final Occultation all had supernatural and even more bizarre, reality warping abilities. What's special though is that these beings actually drove Darth Maul to his own mental limits, and Sidious feared them a great deal. Maybe there are things out there worse than Sith. It is possible for one to escape from chaos though. However, it requires a heavy amount of external intervention. Palpatine was able to return from chaos due to the help of Saint Pestage, one of his advisors and devotees. A very specific ritual had allowed him to return from life in one of his clone bodies on the world of Biss, making Palpatine one of the very few to escape the clutches of chaos, albeit momentarily. The legendary Sith Mark Aragnos also managed to return to life during the New Jedi Academy era, when a cult used the Scepter of Ragnos to gain enough power to bring his spirit back from the Chaos Realm. He would have also been able to be resurrected had it not been for the efforts of one Kyle Katarn and Luke Skywalker's New Jedi Order. But with all of that said, it is not 100% guaranteed that a Sith is destined for chaos as soon as they tread down the path of the dark side. There is some redemption along the way. Some Sith repented in their final moments and gained a more favorable afterlife. Though the cases are very few in number, we know only a handful who have not gone to chaos upon their death. The first one is obvious in Darth Vader. In the moment that he had shut his eyes on the Death Star, the ghost of Obi-Wan quickly came to Anakin and rushed in to tell him the secret to retain his identity, essentially saving Anakin's spirit from eternal damnation. He didn't so much as let Anakin apologize. He was too quick to teach his former apprentice how to do this, literally while Anakin was being absorbed into the Force. Afterwards, Anakin was able to have a limited amount of Force Ghost manifestations, since it had been a rushed process. The Old Republic Dark Council member by the name of Darth Mar also escaped chaos and became one with the Force successfully. We're not exactly sure how he did this, but it's likely that this Force itself took exception to him, as despite being a Sith Lord, for all intents and purposes, overall, he was a good man. Darth Mar cared for the citizens of his empire and only wanted to see the empire thrive. He made peace with the Jedi and would even sacrifice himself when he faced down Emperor Valkorion. Another fascinating topic is Darth Kaitis or Jacen Solo, who also achieved oneness with the Force following his death. After succumbing to his injuries, he ultimately spared the life of his sister Jaina Solo, which she interpreted as the last moments of Jacen Solo shining through the darkness. Jacen was able to manifest as a Force ghost during the Abeloth crisis in order to aid his uncle Luke, indicating that Jacen was not banished to chaos forever. The last Sith we know of to become a Force ghost was Revan, who separated his light half and his darker half, and would even go on to drag his darker half into the Force, likely into chaos, meaning that a part of Revan's spirit likely did go there. From here, we have a few more mentions of Sith who may have become one with the Force, and those that were not sent to chaos. Ajunta Pao was able to not only escape chaos, but also became one with the Force, as he repented and forgave himself. This was during a conversation with a very young Revan. Then there are two other Sith Lords who died peacefully who we don't really know of their ultimate fate, the first being Darth Sion. Mitra Surik convinced Darth Sion to not be afraid of death and to let go. He would stop forcefully repairing his body and would eventually let go of his pain altogether, becoming one with the Force. His death is shaped very peacefully, so it's possible that he did not go to the Netherworld since he embraced peace in his final moments. Another is Darth Vectivus, as you know, is a Sith Lord who did no evil. He died surrounded by friends and family. While we have no idea what Darth Vectivus' afterlife would look like, we can safely assume he probably became one with the Force since he never caused any suffering or did any real evil. He simply pursued dark side knowledge and somehow escaped chaos. But but again, that is just a theory. But this is just about everything there is to know about the Sith hell known as Chaos or the Void. I honestly wish that the afterlife of the Force was more talked about in the lore. The netherworld remaining mysterious is understandable, but I do wish we got more mention of Chaos, and how it even struck fear into Sith, as well as goes down the idea that all Sith are fated to eventually arrive in Chaos unless they repent. Whatever happens to them though, it leaves the Sith broken and screaming. It is not a peaceful place, and not a place I would recommend visiting. Perhaps the Sith don't truly understand this place, because none of their predecessors have returned to warn their fellows of it. But I think a story comprised of a collection of Sith Lords desperately attempting to escape their inevitable damnation would be a fascinating tale. Or perhaps if there was one Sith who was given a second chance, visiting Chaos, and then given a mission to warn the rest of the Order about this dark and doomed place. There are dozens of possibilities with this realm. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on the Sith afterlife? Which among the Sith Order do you believe deserved Chaos the most? And who do you think was ultimately spared from it? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the archives today. Your support means the world, and of course, may the Force be with you.